How to communicate with those who always have it bad. In this video, we will talk about the people who are in our lives. These can be close relatives, friends, acquaintances, or colleagues at work who constantly experience some negativity and continuously share that negativity. Before we move on to discussing this video, I would like to ask you to hit the subscribe button and give it a like so that as many people as possible can see it. So let's get started. Why do some people seem to have everything going well, while others have everything going poorly? It seems as if all the negativity that exists in the world is falling down on one person's head. There is a concept known as chronic dissatisfaction. This is how the human brain is structured, and perhaps the behavior model originated in childhood, when, for example, a boy or girl complained to their mother about something bad, attracting their mother's attention, and this pattern began to take root from childhood. That is, I can attract attention to some negatives, and this model has taken root. Our brain is structured in such a way that, let's say, it's like tuning a radio to a specific frequency. That is, if we are internally seeking some positivity, happiness, and trying to work on our lives in order to be even happier, we attract this into our lives. But a person who builds their life on complaints and dissatisfaction seems to attract more of it like a magnet. And the brain already filters out positive information. That is, it accepts only the negative that comes from outside. And the brain no longer sees the positive. A person actually feels unhappy and lives in this negativity, not knowing how to get out of it. A person with chronic dissatisfaction has a direct desire to confirm that everything is bad. Phrases like, everything is bad, there's no way out, all the troubles of the world are falling on me, and so on. That is, a person uses such phrases, and when you start suggesting options for how to get out of all this, the person immediately says no. They do not even consider options for getting out of difficult situations. A person becomes so accustomed to living in this model that they do not want to take responsibility for their own life. And at some point, he even starts to enjoy being in all of this, being pitied. He shifts the responsibility of himself. He no longer takes responsibility for his life. After all the circumstances of the world, all the circumstances of life are to blame for the fact that everything is going poorly for him right now. And this person, by removing responsibility from themselves, justifies their inaction. In other words, now I can do nothing. But why is everything so bad for me? I can justify myself by saying that perhaps I am just unlucky. Perhaps some misfortunes are falling upon me, and so on. How should one communicate with such a person? After all, it is really very difficult to interact with someone like that. Often this person, the complainer, the negative one, if the communication is close, especially if they are a relative, a close relative who constantly complains, they start to infect you with that negativity. At some point, these thoughts and emotions begin, so to speak, to take root in one's own mind. This negative influence needs to be avoided. The first thing you need to do is not to blame yourself for someone else's inaction. If you understand that a complaining person is someone who does not want to take responsibility for their own life and is not trying to do anything to change it, then you will have a better understanding of what is happening. In other words, you do not need to blame yourself. Very often, when we hear a close person, an acquaintance, or a friend complaining about their own life and how everything is so bad for them, we start to feel a sense of guilt. But this feeling of guilt arises because we are doing something while the person who complains is not making any attempts to do anything. And this person might use phrases like this: you are lucky, here you are, following your own path, solving some problems, taking some actions. And you are where you are. And at some point, a person who is close to you, a friend, an acquaintance who constantly complains about life, devalues all of this at once. And it instills in you the thought that you were just lucky. That is, not that you spent a lot of nerves, effort, emotions, patience, and possibly some of your inner strength. And all of this gets devalued. You were lucky. At some point, you realize that in the conversation with this person, feeling guilty, you no longer want to share positivity. You already feel, well, almost ashamed to share something good, and you start to mention some negative moments too, because it feels shameful to share positivity, trying to prove to yourself that your victories are just luck, which makes you feel guilty and devalues you. That is, these are not the emotions that a person who is striving for their results deserves. And victories can feel like being brought down from the heavens to the ground. And it may also suggest that your successes are somehow undeserved. For example, if it's a friend, she might say, "Of course you have such a husband and such support, while I have none of that," instilling in you the belief that you haven't really made any effort, that it's just some kind of luck, while she is always unlucky. Such a person is full of negative beliefs to justify their inaction. That is, by doing nothing for their life, this person will always find an excuse for what is happening in their life. So what should one start doing? If you cannot get rid of communication with such a person, meaning you cannot reduce it, do not participate in these discussions. That is, when a person starts complaining to you about their own life, saying how everything is going badly for them, pretend that you are not hearing them, as if you are focusing on another topic or steering the conversation elsewhere. And then the person will understand that you no longer want to participate in this negativity. A person who complains will find another victim with whom they will be interested in continuing such conversations. And do not try to indulge them. If you listen to a complainer and indulge them saying, "Yes, you really have bad luck. Yes, everything is really bad for you," this complaining person then slips into an even greater victimhood, feeling even more sorry for themselves, feeling even more unhappy. And in this way, he is sinking, meaning he will feel even more that he is incapable of doing anything in his life, and the circumstances are pushing him deeper and deeper to the bottom. Do not try to help someone if they do not ask for it. If you are somewhat of an altruist and want to help, perhaps feeling guilty because you are doing well while your friend or acquaintance is not, you want to help in some way. However, if the person themselves does not have the desire to pull themselves out of this swamp, you will not achieve anything. You will only spill your own energy. You cannot take responsibility, sir, for someone else's life. And in fact, they are looking for new reasons to fall into despair. That is, if a person does not tell you, "Help me, I want to get out of this swamp, I don't know how," then that is a different matter. But when you see that the person is already mired in this negativity and they are not trying to change anything, you, with your altruism, are trying to change their life. You may change some attitudes regarding a specific situation, but the person will fall into despair in some other situations. Moving on. Ask questions. This really helps to sober up the complaining victim who says that, for example, you meet up with your friend and she says, "Oh, everything is terrible at work. My boss is a jerk. My colleagues are just unbearable. The salary is low. They dump all the work on me. They don't treat me like a person and I have to stay late." And so you listen to all this and ask a counter question. Why don't you do anything to possibly find another job? To leave where you are not valued instead of staying where you will be appreciated? And here a person may have responses like, "Everything is bad everywhere." That is, the person already knows from the start that everything is bad for them. Therefore, when you ask questions and a person complains about life and you ask, "Well, why don't you do something?" At some point, the person may come to their senses and realize that in order for something to change in my life, I must do something myself, not wait for someone like Petya, Dasha, or Glasha to take responsibility for my life, to just shake up my life, and then I will start living differently. No one has experienced this differently. If you want changes in your life, you need to take responsibility for your life. And if you don't like communicating with a person who drains you with negativity, again, it is solely your responsibility. What steps will you take to either limit yourself, try to help, or stop communicating altogether with a person who has a strong negative influence? Next, you can change the topic to something positive. For example, again, you are communicating, for instance, with a friend. For example, a friend says, "Oh, kids, it's so hard. There are lessons and something else. There are difficulties at school." And again, the conversation is going in such a negative direction. Try to switch it up a bit. Change your perspective. Say, "Oh, I recently saw your Dasha, for example. Or Dasha, she is such a wonderful girl of yours, so radiant, so interesting and beautiful. She was walking home from school so cheerfully, just a beauty growing up." And in those moments, a person can switch to positivity in the conversation. And perhaps you will not change the person communicating with you with these moments, but to the person someone who is used to complaining will understand that it is necessary to talk about something else with you. It is still possible to discuss negative topics with other people. And so you will limit yourself a little and protect yourself from negativity. Next, do not show interest in the conversation. That is, when the conversation starts to take a negative turn, act detached, switch topics, or open your phone, for example. It's as if you need to make a call or just say that you have a call. Once you do this a couple of times when someone starts to complain, the person will quickly understand that it won't work with you. In other words, you are not ready to listen to complaints about life. Do not give up on your life. Often, especially when relatives are used to living in negativity, they charge the conversation with this negative talk, complaining about life, and this can instill a person with new negative attitudes. Life is scary, life is pain, life is suffering. When close people or a close person constantly expresses this, it can willingly or unwillingly become ingrained in a person. So there it is. Do not give up on your life. You have the right to happiness, to love, to what you envision in your life. A person is exactly what they believe. If a person understands that life is beautiful and seeks reasons to be amazed and joyful about this life, they will find new reasons for joy and happiness. If a person falls into negativity, they will continue to confirm to themselves that life is pain and life is suffering. If you realize that no methods are working with a person, try either to limit communication altogether, meaning only when necessary, or to refuse such communication because, as the saying goes, a spoonful of honey does not change a barrel of tar, but a spoonful of tar will certainly spoil the honey. Therefore, if you realize that interacting with a certain person brings that spoon of tar, and you feel bad after the conversation, you shouldn't torture yourself. You have the right to live your own happy life. You are not responsible for someone else's life. You should not blame yourself for having it good while someone else has it bad. That's all for this video. I was Alice Vardomska. I hope for your likes and subscriptions. Write in the comments what you would like to discuss in my new videos. Don't forget to hit the bell icon, and goodbye.